Good evening and welcome to another series of Talk Sports where we speak to the movers and shakers of sports. And our guest this evening is Mr. Roddy Estwick. He's the assistant coach of West Indies and also with the St. Lucia Zouks. We'll be talking a lot about cricket this evening, St. Lucia Zouks and West Indies. The Zouks came close to securing the 2020 Caribbean Premier League or CPL championship, losing to the Trinbago Knight Riders in the final last Thursday. But it was a good turn of events for the Zouks, who should be hanging their heads very high indeed. So we welcome Coach Roddy Estwick to the program, who will speak to us about the team's performance in this year's edition of the CPL. We'll also be discussing cricket in general terms, and as an assistant coach with the West Indies, Mr. Estwick will give his assessment of regional cricket and the recent West Indies tour of England. Let me say good evening to Mr. Estwick. Coach Estwick, good evening to you.
Good evening, Mike, and good evening, listeners.
Okay. Thank you very much. And should I say congratulations, coach, and what off the bat, what would you attribute to the success of your team in Trinidad?
I thought the togetherness as a group, I thought Darren Sammy was outstanding as a leader. I thought Andy Flower as the head coach also led well. But as a group, the management team, we had constant meetings. We had dialogue with the players. We were in lockdown for the first 2 weeks, but once the lockdown had ceased, we got together. We played dominoes. We tried to build a family. We tried to build a Zouks family. And I think that is one of the areas that we were very strong in. Everybody was supporting one another, and it really worked.
Okay, and any specifics you'll want to point to, given the circumstances that the team, as you said, had to be quarantined, and in some instances, training sessions limited?
Well, yeah, the training sessions in Trinidad was obviously quite difficult because you were sharing one ground between 6 teams, so you had little slots, and obviously people were coming out of lockdown. They haven't been practicing for any length of time, so you really had to hit the ground running. Unfortunately for us, people like Ralston Chase, Mohammed Nabi, people like that, they started well, and we gathered some momentum. And once we got some momentum, the belief in the team started to spread. And one thing Darren Sammy as captain kept saying is that we don't have any superstars, but if we can gel together and if we can believe in one another and if we can support one another, that is something that would stand us in good stead, and it proved right in the end.
Okay, but overall, you thought it was a good tournament for the Zouks, though?
Oh, very, very good. I mean, if you look, they've never been to the final from inception of the competition. So for us to get to the final, obviously we were disappointed in losing out to Trinidad. But obviously Trinidad, the way they were playing, they were outstanding right throughout the tournament. And I thought that we pushed them in all the games we played against them. And that was something that was very heartening for us. And we've just got to build on this now. We know what it takes to win. We know that the things that we have to do well. We continue to say the things, limit the dot balls, make sure we get 240-run partnerships, and once we can do those things consistently and everybody understanding the role, then we can go one step further next year.
Okay. You will say formidable opponent in Trinbago, the Trinbago Knight Riders.
Well, yes, obviously they had a head start on us. They came into lockdown a week after everyone, so that made things a lot easier for them. They were able to practice and had practice games and things like that. A lot of the teams had 2 or 3 practice days, and that made it very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we can talk about CPL in back and forth and thing, and I know, Coach, you really want to talk cricket, and that is what we want to do as well. So it's not just the Zouks. You also with the West Indies team, but also various aspects of the West Indies team, because I think you were with the youth team, the under-19s as well. You have been around growth and development of West Indies cricket for quite a while. So as coach of these various teams, how would you assess the state of our players in comparison to the other major teams?
Well, I think that we're making strides. We're not winning series, but we can win the odd test match. I thought that we started very well in India. We tapered off in the end, but we're becoming a lot more competitive. We now got to find a way where we can win series. We're trying to improve the fitness levels of the players. You now have to reach a target of 40 on the yo-yo to be selected. So there are a lot of things we're trying to do. We've now gone to 10 first-class games, a series as well. And once we can continue to improve at the franchise level and at the under-19 level, where competition becomes a bit tougher for places, then we've got a realistic chance at keep improving. But we've just got to keep working hard. The players are very disciplined. So once they can keep improving the skills, keep having dialogue, keep having discussions, and find ways of improving. Not winning a one-off test match. We need to win. We need to win test series. We're improving it as well in the 50 overs. And obviously the T20 World Cup will be next year, so we need to continue to improve in that as well.
Yeah. Well, and do you think that a high-intensity program basically showing results, especially for emerging players?
Well, yes, obviously, if you look back, the emerging players won the regional 50-over competition last year. So that is, or earlier this year. So that is something that we've got to continue to do. We've got to continue to find competitive cricket and tough cricket for the emerging players, for the 18 players, so it makes competition at the highest level a little bit more difficult. People can't sit back and think mediocre performance will keep them in the side. We've got to try and raise the standard and make sure that we get a lot better.
Okay, and you are one of a few, I should say, of the experienced and knowledgeable cricketers of the region. Do you think we have been utilizing the experience and knowledge of our past players as much as we can in the coaching and mentoring, especially of our players?
Well, you can never do enough. There's a room for a lot of our past ex-players, especially in the mentoring stage. We need them to mentor these youngsters, to sit with them, have chats, have dialogues, to help them to understand test cricket, to understand cricket, to understand what made them successful. Because let's be honest, we were very successful in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, and we need to capture that again. The West Indies public is crying out for it. You only have to win one test match or one day game, and you see how important it is to the people of the Caribbean. So we've got to find ways where we can sustain that. And the past greats is people that we need. We need the Sir Vivian Richards, the Sir Curtly Ambrose, the Ian Bishops of this world to come on board and to help us, to try and get West Indies cricket back to the top. It cannot be done by a few people. It has to be a holistic job where everybody is involved and everybody's heading in the same direction.
Okay, and going on to the 13th man, the fans. Do you think that the fans should be a bit patient and understand that our young players are actually coming through? As a coach, you believe that?
Yes, you've got to be patient, but the players have got to realize that the fans are very important. We've got to find ways of getting the fans back to the stadium. We need full stadiums, and once you get full stadiums, you see the standard of cricket improve. If you look at our T20 record, we've won 2 World Cups. Reason be that our players are always playing under high intense situations where you look at the CPL, they're playing in front full houses. They're playing in the IPL, they're playing in full houses. They're going to the Pakistan leagues and they're playing in front full houses as well. So we need to get that back in first-class cricket. I remember back in the 80s when I played, obviously you could get 14,000 people down to Kensington Oval. Now if you go there for a first-class game, you're seeing 200 or 300 people. And we need to get we need to get better,
Mhm.
you know, and encourage the crowds to come out and support and get behind the young players.
Okay, let's just look back at the recent tour to England. It actually, the final test match was actually like a final in a final, because it was 1-1 basically. West Indies won the first test and won so by 4 wickets. England bounced back to win the second test by 100 and let me see if I have it right, 113 runs, I think. And going into the final test, in fact, both the last 2 test matches was actually played at Old Trafford. What it is, coach, you would have been talking to the guys, what the management team would have been talking to the guys going into that final test?
Well, we felt that we could have won the series. I felt that we lost the series based on not on the third test. I think the second test, when we were 220 odd for 4, and we were all out with the second new ball shortly after that for 290 odd. I think that is where we lost the grip on the series. I still believe a little bit more discipline, a little bit more self-belief, we should at least have come away with a drawn series, you know. But that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, and you've got to understand it was a very, very difficult tour in terms of trying to keep people's spirits up. You're in lockdown for over 2 months. You can only go from your room to the hotel field, from your room to the field, back to your room. You know, you could probably go into the game room and play a little bit of dominoes, and you could see after the second test that the belief started to drain from the players, and we were trying all we can to try and lift them and support them, but it wasn't going to be easy. The English, they were able to go off and play golf and all the different things, but we weren't able to do those things. We wanted to go and watch a bit of Premier League football, but we weren't allowed to do it. So mentally, it was a very, 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 very tough tour. You could hear Joe Archer in the news yesterday just saying how hard a tour it was. He was in lockdown for 89 days, and we were in lockdown in England for 60 days, and it was a really, really a tough tour. But it brought us closer together as a group. So going forward, I think this is the way it's going to be, and this is something that we've got to get used to. We can't continue to make excuses, and we've just got to make sure that we're ready the next time it arrives.
Well, glad to know that Joffrey is speaking about that, because he paid the price, as you know. He paid a heavy price, and I understand that you were very close to Joffrey, right? So you were able to, at least when he had his problems, you were able to speak to him and, in a way, a sort of mentorship to him as well.
Well, yes, obviously I know Joffrey from Barbados. I did quite a bit of work with him when he had the stretch fracture at the back to try and remodel his action. I had him with the West Indies on the 19s as well, and we try and talk as often as possible. And I just wanted to support him, you know. I just wanted to let him know that, you know, you've done what you've done, you've paid the price, and just keep your head down, stay off social media, and just try and focus on your cricket, because people are always looking to pull you down once you're successful. So you know, sometimes you need people that you know you can trust, and people that you can have a discussion with. And that's all I try to do with a young man, just to have a discussion with him, just to try and keep his spirits up. He's a talent. It is sad for a lot of West Indies that he's playing for England, but it has happened. We've got to look past that. And at the end of the day, we've got to try and support the young people as well.
Okay, talking about mentoring, on the lighter side, I understood that you're actually the gym teacher of Rihanna.
that was a long time ago. I think Rihanna left school over 15 years now. So yes, she was a student at the Commerce School when I was a PE teacher, cricket master at Commerce. So we came into contact, and we used to have discussions about her not wanting to run and exercise, but now she has to do it with her line of work, and she has to stay fit, and we have a joke about it.
Yeah, I actually saw that photo where you all, well, it was like a reunion itself, you know. But coach, when staying in England, when rain delayed play in one of the test matches, West Indies legendary fast bowler Michael Holden delivered a powerful and moving speech on race, where he called for an end in what he considered to be institutional racism, and also for meaningful education in Black history. How moving you thought this was for the West Indies team at the time?
Well, I didn't see this. I didn't see or hear the speech when it was first broadcast, but one of the players brought it to my attention, and I thought it was a very, very moving speech. And it's all about educating our young people, because obviously they're not really versed in West Indian history and the struggles that people have to make, and people continue to make in places like England and New York to make life a lot easier for us. I remember going to England and Rohan Kanai, the great Rohan Kanai, leaving Blackpool and traveling all the way to where I was playing to have a chat with me and to tell me the things that shouldn't be done and the things that are expected of a professional cricketer, and the way the culture in England is. So you've got to understand that we've got to try and educate people. I think that's the only way we're gonna solve the problems that we're having, is by true education and people understanding the need to educate one another, so we can eradicate this very, very serious problem.
Okay. And then only recently, coach, that I think during the CPL, captain, well, he's West Indies captain, but also Trinbago, the Knight Riders, Karen Pollard, identified an inability to adapt to different conditions as one that not only plagued teams throughout the CPL, but negatively impacts the regional team as well. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, yes, I thought that the pitches weren't as poor as the score suggested. I think that people didn't understand that you couldn't make 180, 200 on the pitches, and they were still trying to go hard from word go. I think what Trinidad did well was they would reduce the power play, but lose less wickets in the power play. And then obviously they had people like Pollard and Bravo at the back in the innings, where they can go for power. So it's all about adjusting. It's all about understanding the pitches. And what we said to the group is that, send us back messages once you get out there, and let us know what we think is a good score, and then we try to achieve that. Information is very, very key. Once you have the information and the rules, and people understand the rules, then you can achieve the things that you want to achieve, and that's something that Trinidad did very well. But you also have to bear in mind that they're custom playing at the Queen's Park Oval. They're custom playing in Trinidad. A lot of their players currently play for Queen's Park Cricket Club, so they're based at Queen's Park Oval, so they understand the pitches. It takes a while. If you look at the overseas players and the overseas batters, it wasn't only the West Indian batsmen that struggled. A lot of the overseas batsmen who normally would have decent CPLs struggle to adapt to the pitches. So it wasn't just our local players. Obviously, we expected more from our local players, because that is very important for us going forward. But also the overseas players struggle as well.
Okay, but while we're on that, therefore, and in the broader sense, do you think that the pitches in the Caribbean are really affecting the level and the competitiveness of our cricket?
Well, I've always said that if the pitch has bumps and pace in the pitches, then the batsmanship will improve, because obviously in the 80s, when the pitch had pace and the pitch had bounce and we had outstanding fast bowlers, we were then able to produce great batsmen: the Gordon Greenwich, the Desmond Haynes, the Viv Richards, the Larry Gomes, the Lawrence Rowe, a whole list of exciting batsmen. And I think that was born out from the pitches. The pitches had bounce. I think the pitches in the last 10 years are more survival pitches, So once we go overseas and the ball is bouncing above the waist, it becomes foreign to us. We're in the 70s and the 80s, and people bowl short to West Indian cricketers. That they will be fetching and people will be hooking and cutting. And that's something that's gone out of the game, because the players have lost the trust in the pitch. And I think that's something that we've got to get back, where the pitches are a lot more bouncy and a lot more pace. And you would learn quickly, because if you went to Jamaica, you know Jamaica had pace and bounce. You went to Guyana, you know Guyana was a beautiful batting pitch. You went to Barbados, had pace and bounce. Antigua, lovely batting, lovely for batting. You went to Trinidad, the ball spun. So you had to adjust. Even though you were playing 5 first-class matches, you had to adjust quickly. You had to learn to play in all different conditions because all the Caribbean islands offered something differently. Now you're getting, wherever you go in the Caribbean, all the pitches are the same. And I think that's something that is not, hasn't helped us going forward. You know, you go to Australia, you know that Perth is going to bounce. You know, Sydney is going to spin. You know, Tasmania is going to be cold. So we've got to get back where every country or every territory prepares a different pitch and it offers up a different challenge for a young West Indies batsman coming through.
Okay, before we move forward, this name might be familiar to you. You worked with him, Dwayne Gale. He says, Roddy has a wealth of knowledge and is an educator. It's important to know that he gave back a lot at the junior level at Commonwealth School in Barbados before moving on to the senior ranks. He's one of our best coaches. You would have worked with Dwayne.
Thanks, Dwayne. Yes, he was manager with on the 19 side that I took to. We took to the World Cup and we went to Bangladesh as well. So I know Dwayne well. You know, Dwayne is somebody that is very, very keen on cricket. He's doing an excellent job as president in Grenada. And we need people like that. We need people to support the youngsters and be there for them and make sure that we can guide them and we can help them. You know, we tend to put a lot of negativity around young people. They need guidance, they need love, they need direction. And once we can do that, then we've got a chance.
Okay. I just want to go back to a quote that you had. It basically says, we have got to make sure that our preparation is spot on. Our discipline is spot on, and we cannot underestimate the English. They'll be hardworking. We have got to be disciplined. I think that was a quote from you for the recent tour to England. You think we had achieved much of that?
Well, I thought we started really well. We were very, very disciplined. We were very, very hardworking. And the first test really showed that. Like I said, I thought that the lockdown started to affect us mentally because it was very, very, very difficult. You know, the English players were able to drive up from Southampton in the cars. They were able to go off to play golf and things like that. We weren't afford such luxury, and it was a very, very, very rough tour. It's something that we're not accustomed to in the West Indies. You know, you're accustomed going out, you're accustomed going to the beach, you're accustomed going for your strolls. When you go in England, normally you're accustomed going shopping, you're accustomed dining out. But we couldn't do anything like that. And I thought as the tour went on, it became more difficult for us. You know, you would look out your hotel room and you would see the English going off to play golf and do little things like that. We weren't there for that luxury. And I thought eventually the mental side of it, not the skill factor. Obviously, they got better. The selection probably got better by bringing Stuart Broad in. But from a mental side, for me, I thought that is where we fell down, and it was very, very difficult to recover. But there were one or two good signs. I thought Shamar Brooks looked a good player, and is somebody that if he can continue to work and stay disciplined and stay focused, then we can continue to improve. Kemar Roach got his 200th Test wicket while we were in England. You know, hopefully he has 2 or 3 more years left in him, and he can help guide the young fast bowlers as well, because there was an outstanding crop of young fast bowlers as backup to the English to that tour. You know, they were really exciting. They're all around the age of 23, and once we can put the programs in place and we can get them to learn quickly, because that nursery that used to exist in the 80s where people would go off to England and play a county season is not there anymore. I think we've got to get back to having the HPC and the academies, so that we can now drive these young people forward. Because like I said before, if we can get our fast bowling stock up and the pitches can get bounce and pace back, then we will see batsmanship improve as well.
Okay, I want you to stay on that point because I want to read another one because you spoke about the fast bowling. The fast bowling is very key to us. Shannon, Jason, Alzari, Kimar, the four big fast bowlers. They are here, but what we have also got on this tour is a group of youngsters coming through. Shimar Holder, O'Shane Thomas, Anderson Phillip. We are beginning to get blessed with fast bowlers again in the West Indies. So that's an exciting time for us. Indeed, you agree? Indeed, it's an exciting.
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%. You know, haven't seen the youngsters in England. You know, the names you call, but there was also Preston McSween. There was also Keon Harding. You know, we still had people like Obed McCoy from St. Vincent. He wasn't there. We had O'Shane Smith. We still have Kimo Paul wasn't on that tour. Romario Shepherd. So there are a lot of young, exciting fast bowlers. But like I said, we've now got to find a way where we can get them all on the park, we can get them all fit, and we can get them all firing. Because once we can do that, then it makes exciting times.
But it's also confusing that you have so many when it comes to the decision in terms of who do you go with? Because I know you were able to go with about 25, a party of 25 players and, well, an entire party of 25. Normally it's probably about 15, 17. So what was the reason behind so many players being able to be on the tour to England?
Well, obviously, on the tour to England, you couldn't have any net bowlers. Obviously, with COVID, the net bowlers weren't allowed to come into the bubble. Nobody was allowed to come into the bubble, so you had to take net bowlers. And I thought that it made practice fun. It made practice enjoyable. It tests the batsman as well. And if we can continue that, I think it's the way forward. I think that cricket for the next year to 18 months. This is what is going to happen. You're going to be taking large squads away. So it's all about the player wanting to be in that squad. You just don't want to be part of the touring party. You want to break into that test side. You want to put pressure on the four big players that we talked about earlier. And we want to put pressure on them by performance. You know, once first last season comes around, you got to start putting the numbers. You got to start getting 30, 40 wickets in a season, and then once you can do that consistently, then you have a chance. You just don't want to just sit there and go on the tour. You want to be selected. You should want to play for West Indies, and you should not only want to play one test match. You should want to play 60, 70 test matches. And you should want to become a West Indian great, because the public is crying out for West Indies cricket to do well. And I think that we've got the talent, we've certainly got the discipline. The players are very, very disciplined, but now we've just got to work that little bit harder. We've just got to work a little bit harder and really have discussions with the great players of the past to try and move us to the next level.
And talking about the great players of the past, many of our senior players are now in their twilight years. Have you seen the emergence of new leaders among those crop, or the current crop?
Well, I think we have. You look at Shea Hope. He's been West Indies vice captain. Craig Braffett has been West Indies vice captain as well. You've got young Shamron Hetmar, who was under 19 winning captain. You've got Nicholas Pooran. So we've got the players. What I would like to see happening now, that these players are given the opportunity to lead. I would love to see a Pooran or Hetmire leading Guyana in CPL. Getting experience. I would love to see them back playing red ball cricket and leading the countries. I know Leon Johnson is doing an excellent job for Guyana, but I would love to see Leon mentoring somebody like Hetmire on leadership, because Leon has been an outstanding captain. If he can mentor those youngsters, then we have leadership. And what I would also like to see, the things that they put, that they're doing at the senior level, they will go back to the franchises and they would educate the youngsters so everybody is going in the same direction. I remember when I played, and you heard people like Joe Garner and Collis King and people like that talking. You would listen for hours on end, and you would pick up things from them, and you would go back to the nets and you would try them, and you would see those little things helping and your game improving. Those are the things that we need. Like I said earlier, we need mentorship. We need leadership to help the young people, because it's about West Indies cricket. It's not about any one individual. We all have to be it together. We've all got to be willing to make that sacrifice to make the cricket a lot better.
As an experienced coach, there has been talk when it just came around about the effect T20 will have, especially in West Indies cricket. You don't share that view, Coach Estwick?
To be honest, when it first came about, I was one that thought it would hamper our cricket. But there's so much to T20 now. For one, it's made the fielding a lot better. It proves that if you approach it right, I look at somebody like Ralston Chase, who was outstanding for us in the middle, understanding his role. And if you look at some of the best batsmen in world cricket, they're test match batters, and they're still outstanding T20 batsmen. David Warner, Virat Kohli, people like that. A.B. de Villiers, Chris Gayle. People forget has two triple hundreds in Test cricket. He's got 8,000 runs in Test cricket. So you can improve, and it helps you to improve your skill, because now you're seeing slower balls, you're seeing slow ball bouncers, you're seeing defensive Yorkers attacking Yorkers. It has moved the game forward. People now in 50 over cricket are scoring 300, 320 to be safe. Years ago you scored 260 and you would win more games than lose. So that has moved the game forward. Test cricket now, teams are scoring at 3 runs over, 4 runs over on a good day. So it has been really good for the game of cricket, and it's also given people an opportunity to earn. Everybody cannot play Test cricket, but some people who haven't played Test cricket have still gone on and become very, very wealthy from T20 cricket. 2 names that spring to mind is Kieran Pollard, the 50 over, the white ball captain, and also Sunil Narang. So who haven't played a lot of 4-day cricket or Test cricket, but they've become wealthy from it. So there's scope for everybody, and I think it's been a wonderful addition to cricket, and it's also bringing young people to the stadium, and that's what you want. You want to see young people to the stadium and having the love to go out and go back into the schools and to the clubs and look to improve.
And how you think we can bring that sort of excitement and that's further from T20 into the other formats of the game, especially for West Indies?
Well, I've always said that I think that there should be an entertainment package at lunchtime. You especially at weekends. I think that on Saturdays and Sundays we can have the latest bands or groups that can come down and they can play. They can have a session for 40 minutes, for an hour. And I also think that you can reduce prices. And for me, that is something that I think that we need to address. You pay $20 at the start of the day. And if I want to go down to watch cricket at Kingston Oval at 3 o'clock at tea time, I'm still paying the $20. I think that you should be staggering the prices. If you're paying 20 at the start, at lunchtime it should be 10. At tea time it should be 5. So people leaving cricket, people leaving work will then go down to the stadium, and they could get 2 hours in for $5, and that would give us a better chance of getting people back into the stadium. We've got to find ways of trying to improve the standard, the gates. We've got to think outside the box, because there's so much things for the young people to do now. They can stream it, they can stream the cricket, they can do all sorts of different things. So we've got to make sure that we find ways to get them back into the stadium and enjoying the cricket.
Okay, and between now and the summer of 2021, I think the T20 World Cup is now what should have been 2020 in Australia is now 2021 in India, if I'm not mistaken. What it is in terms of the schedule for the West Indies team, the men's team?
Well, the thing about it's a day-to-day, it's an ongoing thing with COVID. You're never sure which tour is going to happen. I know that right now in the pipeline, there's a New Zealand tour plan. When in the planning stages where they could possibly play 2 test matches, 2 T20 games, plus 2 18 games for the backup players that is traveling to New Zealand as well. But that is in the pipeline. I don't know if it's going to come off or not, but those are things that they're trying to work on to try and get cricket back. It's a challenge, and you've got to a lot of discussions go on behind the scene, and people are behind the scenes, and people are trying to work hard to make sure that these things happen. It's not going to be easy planning cricket. You're never sure if these things will take place, because you remember we had to go to England on a charter flight. We couldn't go on a commercial flight. We had to take charters. People had to fly into Antigua, and then we took a charter up to England, and the same thing back to the West Indies. So it's a very expensive undertaking, and obviously if you're in a bubble, you can't have any guests in the hotels you're staying. So it takes a lot of planning, and credit must go to the West Indies and to the ECB for really pulling this off and giving us a chance to go to England.
Okay, and it's interesting about that because I was going through the whole logistics for the West Indies getting to England, and as you describe it, I mean, you can probably just describe it in a few words, but it takes quite a lot, it appears, even for the broadcasters themselves. They also had to be quarantined and all that it takes in terms of putting on even a short series as the 3 test matches. Quite a lot it took. But the regional first class tournaments, how do you think, or what, as assistant coach, as coaches, as the management team for West Indies, how it is going forward that you hope to be able to see your players perform and probably select the right team for the future?
Well, I'm not a logistics officer, so I can't really tell you how it's going to happen going forward in terms of 4-day cricket or 50-over cricket. Obviously, they will be putting their heads together. They'll be crunching the numbers. With COVID, we've lost a lot of money with the West Indies board. As you know, we are working on a 50% pay cut at the moment, but it's understandable because there's not a lot of money coming in. So we had to take that. But for me, it's all about getting cricket. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it like how we did in Trinidad, where you try and get all the teams into one country, say Barbados, and you try and use 4 or 5 venues to make sure that cricket is being played, because you can't stop playing cricket. You've got to find a way to get cricket back out there. You see the English Premier League is back now with no spectators. You've got to find a way. We've got to find a way, and we just can't throw our hands up in the air and say, well, look, it's not going to happen. We've got to find a way of making it happen. We've got to find a way to get those young players back playing, get the fitness levels up, and keeping the energies and the enthusiasm for the game up, because it's very, very difficult. If you're stuck at home and you're not playing and you're not being able to practice your skills, something that you've worked from age 5 to now, and you're not being able to play cricket, and it's difficult. It's a very, very difficult time for a lot of the players, and we've got to find ways of making sure that they're out there and they're playing.
Okay, back to the quotes now. Partnerships are key, or rather are the key. We are getting stats. We are looking good, but we are not going on. So that's the concern, that nobody's going on to get big hundreds, but we are not worried about form.
Well, yes, you're spot on in that assessment. I felt in England that players looked in good nick. you didn't see anybody that looked out of form. Why in the net sort of matches, but there was nobody going on to get big scores. And I think that separates us from that was the difference with us in England. You know, our highest score was Jermaine Blackwood, who got 94 in the first Test match. But you know, you looked at Sibley got 100, and Ben Stokes got a big 100 as well. And for me, that was the difference. You know, you look at the players and you felt, well, look, they looked in good nick, but yet the scores weren't just suggesting that. You know, they're getting 40s. Brooks got a few 50s. Craig Brathwaite got a 76 in the Test match, but nobody went on to get 130, 140. And once you do that as a batting group, you know you're going to make 350, you're going to make 370, and then that puts the opposition under pressure, because as a bowling group, you know, we knew that we could bowl England out, but we just didn't perform with the bat as we would like. But for me, it wasn't a lack of preparation. It wasn't lack of form. I think it was a lack of more. You had to be tough. You know, England, you're never in, because the ball will swing, the ball will move around. The Zouks ball would do a little bit. So you always had to stay tight. You couldn't get ahead of yourself. And I didn't think that's something that we did as well as a coaching group that we would have liked, you know. But you hope that they learn. We can't keep using the excuses now that the young players, because they're all coming in now to their prime. They're all 26, 27, 28. And this is where West Indies cricket should be taking off, because they're the peak of the powers now. They've just got to work that little bit harder. And if they have any technical deficiencies, try and get it sorted out, because the next 4 or 5 years should be very, very important in a lot of their careers.
Okay. Coach, you think it was in retrospect, do you think it was an error on West Indies? Fielded first at Old Trafford twice and lost on both occasions?
You know, sometimes you look at it and you think you should do this and you should do that. You know, hindsight is 20/20 vision. If you win the toss and you're elected to bat, and you get ball out for 140, you would hear everybody saying, well, why did you go and do this? You bowl first at Southampton and won the Test match. Now you're going in Manchester, and you're winning the toss and batting. You know, for the bottom line for me, and I said it before and I'll say it again. I thought when we were 240 odd on the fourth afternoon of the Test match is where we lost to that second new ball, where we lost 6 wickets in quick time, and that turned the whole series around. I think that was a turning point. I don't think, yes, with hindsight you could say, well, you should have bowled first, but I felt that bowling first didn't make that bigger difference. You know, I think that just losing those wickets in quick succession really put us under pressure.
Okay, and going back on the bowling aspect overall, as the bowling coach, and bowling seems to be your soiree, I should say. Let's look at some of the younger bowlers with not just only with the West Indies team, but those who are on the fringe of West Indies selection. Are you convinced that our bowling attack would be something second to none in probably the next few years?
Without a doubt. I really, like I said, when I saw the bowling talent and the bowling group we had in England, I was really, really pleasantly surprised how talented these boys are. There's still some areas that they need to understand. Obviously, the pitch will give you the information. The pitch will give you what length, and what line you should bowl. And those are things that they have to learn very, very quickly. You know, that's going to be very, very important. And the more you play, the more you get to understand. You get to understand Test match bowling. You get to understand first class bowling. If you look at the England bowling attack, you know, you look at Anderson is 38, Broad is 34, you know, Zouks, Ben Stokes. 32, 28. They're not actually young men, and they've got 50, 60 test matches behind them. Broad and Anderson have got 100 test matches behind them. So we've now got to get our young players up to scratch. We've got to get our players playing as much first-class cricket as possible and learning quickly. We haven't got a lot of time. The talent is there, but they've got to be prepared to put in the hard work. Fast bowling is hard work. Fast bowling is discipline. You've got to be able to read the pitches. You've got to be able to read the batsman. You've got to be able to understand the game plans and then go and execute, because talent is not all. Talent is only so much, but there's a lot more to developing an outstanding fast bowler. You look at the great fast bowlers of the past, the Curtly Ambrose, the Andy Roberts, the Michael Holdings. They were very, very quick to assess the batsman and assess the batsman weakness. And once they did that, then they zoning on it, and it made it very, very uncomfortable for the batsman. The English bowlers did it very, very well. The first test match they were a little bit shorter. The last two test matches they went a lot fuller. The target, the stumps, and we struggled to adapt to that. So you've got to be able to assess the batsman, assess the pitches, and then execute.
You mentioned briefly about the HPCs, which is the high potential, high performance center, rather. Do you think it's probably the right time for territorial boards to start investing in those HPCs in their territories?
Without a shadow of a doubt. When you look at the team that went to England, we were doing numbers. The HPC, I think, was 4 years that it was there. And out of the test side, you had a number of players who were involved in the HPC. There were about 13 or 14 guys out of 28 who were the HPC. You look at Jason Holder, Shannon Gabriel, Shea Hope, Shamar Brooks, Jermaine Blackwood. There were a number of people who went to the HPC and went on to play Test cricket. So for me, it's very, very important. But what we need to do is we need to set up satellite HPCs where all around the Caribbean you can have HPCs in every territory. So the players are getting taught not only skill, but they're getting taught to understand the game and to read the game. You're able to go into the classroom and you can come up with field placings and why you're doing this and why you're doing that and what the ball is trying to do when you see certain field placings. So then that will help to speed up the process of us improving.
Yeah, and I agree. Something similar to how you have the baseball and basketball, the academies, in some of the other countries, and they understand the game because, as you said, there are cricketers who, for some reason, they're playing cricket, but they don't understand the game itself. They don't understand the sport, as you say, the field placing.
But if no teaching takes place, how can learning take place? People must understand that. For learning to take place, there must be some sort of teaching. And if you're not prepared to teach the youngsters, they're not going to learn, and it's going to take them a very, very long time because they're learning on their own. And we need to change that. When I played in England and it rained, people used to go off to the pub. Now, when it rains in England, people go off to the indoor centers. They've got 5, 6, 7 bowling machines. You can go and work on your skill. We had a distinct advantage because we would play 12 months a year. In England now, the winter doesn't stop you from practicing because you can go down to your clubs. You can go down to the indoor centers. So you're constantly hitting balls. You can be working out the technical deficiencies that you have. So the world is caught up with us, and we've got to find a way now to try and catch back up with the world. And the only way we can do this is by having the HPCs. I know we're not blessed with a lot of money, but for me, you don't need a lot of money. You need good, solid coaching and good, solid coach education so that the players can be fast tracked, but they can be fast tracked, understanding the game, understanding the rudiments of the game, understanding what it takes to be an international cricketer. You know, you're bringing people like Brian Lara to give talks on on batsmanship, Curly Ambrose on fast bowling and things like that, so that the players can then understand what is needed.
Okay, but how challenging it is now in the interim for someone like you as an assistant coach to teach the youngsters, especially with a short, attention span. Your time, there wasn't the internet, there wasn't the electronic gadgets and all these things, and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. But we have all these challenges now. How challenging it is for you and others to get them to understand the sport.
I've always felt that for me it wasn't a challenge. I was at Commerce School for 17 or 18 years as cricket master, and I really enjoyed the time there. And I found it was quite easy. I think that once you put systems in place for young people to follow, they will follow. You know, if we sit back and say we've got to, yes, you've got to compete with basketball, you've got to compete with the internet, you've got to compete with all these things. But what you have to do, you've got to lead them in that direction. And when I look back at my time at the school, I see people like Craig Braffett, Shane Dorrich, Jamal Warwick, Ralston Chase, Christopher Jordan, quite a number of people who've gone on to play Test cricket and even more gone on to play first-class cricket. But what I did was to make sure that cricket was fun. You know, you would organize inter-school games. You would organize games so they could have fun, so they can enjoy it, and so they wanted to come back. You've got to find a way. We used to sit down after the game, after practice, and you would have conversations, you would have discussions, and then, you know, I think that is something that we must get back to, where the coach doesn't think that his program is from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock and then he goes home. I think you've got to sit with the young people, you've got to talk to them, you've got to explain what went on during practice so they can go home, they can have a think about it, and they can come back the next day prepared to work. And that's how we've got to educate one another, and that's the only way we can get it done. Because years ago you drove around Barbados and you would see lights on in the clubhouse till 12, 1 o'clock, where the Sir Wes Hall and the Sir Charlie Griffith will be talking to us as youngsters, discussing cricket, what happens on cricket tours and things like that. Those days are long gone. Now you pass at 7 o'clock and the clubs are closed because, for one, a lot of the senior players are not being involved in the club, so they're not putting anything back, and the young players are out there on their own. You know, we've got to make sure that we're giving back. I mean, only tonight, obviously, I might have been a few minutes late, but I went to a club near me where I was able to assist them for a couple of hours to try and help the young players, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to be prepared to make sacrifice. You know, we can sit back and say West Indies cricket is not doing as well as we would like, but what are we doing about it? How are we prepared to make that change?
Well said, Coach. And while on that, are you satisfied that so many young boys and girls are still attracted to the sport of cricket despite the challenges of basketball and football and track and field?
Yes, you see a lot of youth clubs are popping up. Especially, I can speak for Barbados. A lot of clubs on Saturday mornings. But what I would like to see now is more coach education. I would like to see we have the coaches qualified. I would like to see the West Indies board, the BCA, putting on coaching sessions. You know, sessions for coaches. Get the players involved. I mean, I started coaching at age 26 because I wanted to coach. I would love to see now all first-class cricketers mandated to take a level two coaching course. They now 15 players for franchise, and I would like to see them going into schools in the downtime. You know, if you practice for 4 hours, you've still got 4 hours in a working day. I would love to see them going around to primary and secondary school boys and girls and giving back. You know, as a youngster, and I saw Seymour Nurse coming to my school to coach. I was so excited. How would a youngster feel now? You know, that he can see a Craig Braffett or he can see a Preston McSween in Grenada coming out to assist them. It gives them a chance to understand and to talk to West Indies cricketers. And I think with the franchise system, we've got a great opportunity to make sure that our young players can go into the schools and they can give something back. But the only way you can do that is by making sure that you qualify, because coaching and playing is not the same thing. It's a big mistake that people believe because you're a great cricketer, you're going to make a great coach. It's not true. You've got to learn to coach, and you've got to keep working at coaching, and you try and improve every day as a coach.
Coach, listening to you, I am of the belief now that, and thanks for converting me, that all is not lost for West Indies cricket. There is hope.
Oh, for sure. No, it's not lost. But we've just got to move that bit further. We've just got to work that little bit harder. And it mustn't be just the players. We throw our hands in the air and we blame the players. But we've got to make sure that when the players come to the ground, the only thing they should be thinking about is playing cricket. Everything else should be in place to make sure that there's no excuses. In this day and age, if you give young people an excuse, they will run with it. We've got to make sure that we put everything in place and we get our heads together and we make sure that we leave no stone unturned, because for me it's West Indies cricket and it's very, very important to a lot of people, not just me. It's important to millions of people. I mean, I know playing cricket in England, and I was in England fortunate enough when we played in 84, when we played in 80, and you could see the happiness on the faces of West Indian people when we were winning series. It meant a lot to them. They were walking the streets very, very proudly. And I want to see us get back to that. I want to see us, I want to see that discussion in the rum shops, in the bars, where people are proud of the West Indies team and proud of West Indies cricket.
So do you think, Coach, that we are playing sufficient cricket, and that's your personal view, sufficient cricket in the Caribbean?
I think we are. You could be probably playing a little bit more at the under 19 level, a little bit more at the under 15 level. What I would like to see programs right throughout the Caribbean. I know Barbados has a good under 15 program, a good under 13 programs, a good under 11 program, a good schools program. What I would like to see implemented is right throughout the Caribbean. There's some Caribbean countries that don't even have a club structure, and that's where we fall down sometimes. I think that, and that's why people like Dwayne Gill is so important to West Indies cricket. People at the grassroots level, and I think that we've got to find a way that money must filter down to the grassroots level, so people can go down to the stadiums, they can get decent pitches to play on, because growing up, the outfields might not have been great, but one thing that was great was the pitches. And I think that once you've got a good pitch, you can get a good product. So we need to make sure that we educate the groundsmen as well. They've got to know exactly what they're doing. What did I do yesterday to make this pitch today such a good one? It's got to be documented. We've got to teach the groundsmen. It must be. Everybody must be in it together. It cannot just be when you get to the test level, expect to perform miracles. If we water that tree from very early, it will grow and it will bear fruit. And I think that's something that we need to do.
Okay, as we get ready to wrap up, what hour just fly by. You speak a lot about the fans as well, but the sponsors are also important. How do you think we can get the sponsors back on board to support West Indies cricket?
Simple. If you're winning, sponsors will come on board. If you have a good product to sell, sponsors will want to be part of it. If it's an entertainment package, sponsors will be part of it. If you look at the CPL, you will see that the CPL has a lot of sponsors and things like that. And if we can get a good product out there, the sponsors will come on board. The sponsors are very, very, very important. And we've got to find a way to make sure that the sponsors can come down to the stadiums and enjoy and enjoy the cricket as well, and be proud of supporting the cricket, not only West Indies cricket, but the clubs. I would love to see all the clubs right throughout the Caribbean have a sponsor. Have where they can produce breakfast programs for the young players in the mornings when they come down to practice and things like that, just to make sure that they're better. Very, very important. But you have to be able to sell that package.
Okay then, Coach. Well, probably I give you the opportunity. Final parting words from you. Obviously, I don't know if we'll be able to speak before the end of the year again, but I want to thank you. But any parting words in terms of development of West Indies cricket?
Obviously, we've got to be patient, but we need West Indies cricket need the support of the fans. We need the support of all the stakeholders, and we just need to be in it together. And we must need to continue to support the young men. If you see a young player in your village or in your country and you're a past player, offer him some support. You might be just buying him a cricket bat that costs $300 or whatever. If you can afford it, help them. We need to make sure that we get back on the top. And the only way we're going to get back at the top is by everybody going in the same direction. But the only way we can do that is by support for one another.
Thank you very much. And I'll remember that, the watchword, patient. Exercise patience. So we are the fans, you do exercise patience. I want to thank you very much, Coach Estwick, for being with us. And obviously, congratulations once again with the Zouks. And hopefully, come 2021, it could be a good season. Hopefully, we're not under the strains of the COVID. So you'll have enough time for your boys to train and, get ready for another exciting tournament.
And thanks for having me. Okay. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you.
Right, and that's Coach Roddy Estwick from Barbados, speaking to us live from Barbados. He's an assistant West Indies coach and also coach with the St. Lucia Zouks, who lost out to the Trinbago Knight Riders in the final of the Caribbean Premier League last Thursday. And it was nice to get Coach onto the program to speak about the performance of the Zouk team and also the West Indies team tour of England in July. And you heard him speaking about the Preston Maxwell and our Grenadian Preston Maxwell, who is with the West Indies team, and the likes of other young, talented bowlers, and a group of bowlers who they actually have their eyes on. And he's not, for some reason, as he said, we're not short of fast bowlers in the region. It's just the tenacity of our batsmen to get the runs. But it was nice speaking with Coach Estwick, and as Dwayne said earlier, is someone with a wealth of knowledge and is considered to be an educator in the sport. And he has worked a lot with our junior players before moving into the ranks, and considered one of the best coaches in the region. Thank you once again, Coach Estwick. And thank you very much, viewers. And just to let you know that on Saturday, our extended program of TalkSports, we'll be talking to Peter Blair, who had more than 40 years of involvement in sports in Grenada. Mr. Peter Blair will be our guest on the program on Saturday Sports Special from 1 o'clock on Saturday. Do join us. Thank you very much for viewing, and see you on Saturday at 1 p.m.